Good evening, everyone. This is Black and Indigenous American. It's been a while since I had my last video. Excuse me while I pat my face because it is very warm in this loft. Well, according to the title of this video, it's called Story Time. Living on a reservation is not the only determining factor regarding your indigeneity. Let me say that again. Living on a reservation is not the only determining factor regarding your indigeneity, okay? Our brothers and sisters that were raised on reservations, I have nothing but respect for them, but sometimes they can bring their opinions to the East Coast, how they think things should be based on their status being from a reservation. There are plenty of people that did not sign treaties with the federal government, right? They didn't sign any treaties or anything like that. And they are still indigenous to that region, wherever they're from. So I just wanted to put that out there. Again, this video is not to diminish the status of those indigenous people that were raised on reservations. And in my opinion, most of their experiences were probably pretty harsh. Many people lived in third world country conditions. Sometimes some people wear that as a badge of honor. I mean, think about it. If you or you know someone who lived in a very rough neighborhood, sometimes they wear that as a badge of honor because they come from the gutter, right? But at the same time, that should not be a determining factor of how Native you are or how Indigenous American you are. So I was, kind of looking at different tribal communities, indigenous people in the Southeast, just curious, looking at some plats, looking at some old deeds and some old surveys of different areas. And I, for the sake of this conversation, I looked at the state of North Carolina and how they have state recognized tribes based on the counties that they're from, for the most part. And if you check out Wikipedia or whatever, you would notice that in the state of North Carolina, they don't talk about reservations for the most part. And somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Well, Cherokee, yes. But the rest of them, they identify them based on the county. And that came to my attention the other night, and I'm like, So at this point, those who are identified, at least state recognized, is based on a county. If wherever they're from, if the majority of people in that particular tribe is from a particular county, then the first thing you think, like if they say I'm from such and such county, you automatically like, oh, you must be such and such. Oh, you must be such and such. They're not saying anything about a reservation because, as of right now, they're not living on reservations. And so that doesn't, again, make them less Indigenous American or less Native just because of that. So just wanted to put that out there. Now, I know in the state of Virginia, I believe the Upper Mattaponi people have a reservation. I think the few members of that tribe still live on that land. And I think they identify that as a reservation. And I'm not sure if they identify that as a reservation as of right now, as of 2019, because that makes them seem more legit, you know what I mean? Versus saying they're from such and such county, or they're predominantly from this county, right? Hi, Sapa Inte. You said take a DNA test. I've already done that. Then you said DNA is the only determining factor. Not necessarily. And then you said DNA is the only determining factor to see how indigenous you are. Not necessarily. As I mentioned before in a previous video, DNA tests reveal a small percentage of your entire makeup. So depending on where the Indigenous American DNA, genetics, or whatever lie in your family tree, it may show more or less of the Indigenous American blood, depending on if you're female versus male. And like I mentioned before, the DNA test, from my understanding, is somewhat like, the results are somewhat like a triangle. So if you're a female, your DNA that will show up on a DNA test for the purpose of racial identification is mother, 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 mother. And then the male will be father, 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 based on my understanding of how DNA tests were put out there years ago when I took my DNA test. So if your Indigenous American roots, your strong connection to being an Indigenous American, either descendant or whatever you want to call it, if you are a male in the Indigenous American or Americans, more than one, plural, were on your father's side, and again, that you're a male, so your father, 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 all the way back, it's going to show a strong connection to Indigenous American people, okay? If you're female and your father and his line pretty much is Native American and your mother's line is something else, then what's going to show up on your DNA results is primarily going to be on the mother side. Mother, mother, all the way back, okay? Unless DNA testing companies, get better with how they collect the data, and also, whatever they do in the labs, right? Until then, it's not, those DNA tests are not going to necessarily tell you what tribe you are connected to, or whatever, how much Native American ancestry you have. It will show a snapshot of it, and it depends on what side of the family that is on. And also with DNA testing, I'm not knocking DNA testing. It does serve its purpose as far as parental results. So if you want to know if someone is your mother or father or whatever, you take the test and you'll get results like you are related to Mr. and Mrs. whatever. So for instance, if you're so inclined to be a member of a particular tribal community, and that's one of your goals throughout your life's path, then if you are connected in some kind of way with a tribal member, be it friends or whatever, you could, if they don't mind, you could ask them to take a DNA test to see if you both are related. And I think a lot of people have been doing that. Like I'm thinking of 23andMe right now, where people are finding their cousins, in some cases, their own siblings that they didn't know about. And so if you are connected to a tribal member through DNA and they're willing to take a DNA test, as far as paternal DNA tests, and you find out that, yes, you are blood related, that doesn't necessarily mean that that tribal member is 100% Native American and everything else that was there just disappeared, right? No, it's that you're related to them regardless of what their genetic makeup is. Because if they're accepted in their tribal community as whatever tribal member, it is what it is. So, and depending on the tribe, they have their, political tribal politics or whatever. So it just depends, right? It depends. But if you want to know if you're related to someone who's already a tribal member by blood, you can do that. And if that group is cool with that, and they would they would accept those results along with probably some sort of paper trail, right? Then they may welcome you into their tribe, and you may become a tribal member. I know some tribes, I'm thinking of North Carolina right now, some tribes, they have, their tribal rolls are closed. And they only open the tribal rolls whenever there's a child that's been born. So existing members, they have a baby or whatever, then that baby is enrolled in that tribe. But if you've grown and you did all this paperwork, I know people that have binders, thick binders of all of their history and genealogy and just everything organized and everything. And that particular tribe did not accept their application because the rolls are closed. Now, my opinion with the rolls being closed, it has a lot to do with keeping the numbers down, I guess, when it comes to monetary distribution, right? If a tribe is too big, then that may cause more of an issue versus proving that they're Indigenous American, more so sharing that pie with other recognized tribes. And that's a whole nother topic of discussion. But with this conversation I'm having right now, for those who at least want to know if they are part of a particular tribe based on a possible relative that's already a tribal member, that's also, in my opinion, could be a way to connect to them. You may not necessarily be enrolled based on their rules. They may not enroll you, but at least you know that even though I'm not an enrolled member of such and such and such, I am such and such and such, right? And you'll come across some tribal members that will welcome you regardless. They see you as family. You may not have voting rights within that community, but if you go into all of their functions and you're contributing to whatever cause that particular community has, if you're giving into and you're investing into the community, you never know what will happen. But sometimes it takes years. It takes years for tribal members to accept you and see you as family. So I would say pack your patience, because if you're just a new person on the block and you just want to dive in and be received and loved and all that, you may not get that that reception that you hoped you would get. Sometimes you got to grow on people. You can't just bust up in there and read all the books or dress a certain kind of way at a powwow and expect for them to receive you, right? They have to kind of warm up to you. And I mean, that makes sense, right? If you're at a family reunion, all of a sudden you see this lost long cousin, don't know what side of the family this person is from. They just pop up. They kind of look like so-and-so, but you don't know. And it's kind of like, you're not going to automatically warm up to them. It's going to take a while. You may have to see them a few more times. There has to be some kind of connection to the family versus somebody just popping up and saying, okay, I'm home, I'm family. So I know sometimes it can be a bit intimidating and it can be hurtful sometimes when you're not received automatically. But I would just say, just be patient, okay? Over the years, I've met some amazing people through, attending different festivals and different workshops. And, it took a long time. It did. It took a long time. I was associated with people that were not well respected within different tribal circles. So I think that may have kind of stunted my growth a little bit. But once they start seeing me at different events, be it protests in DC, rallies, things of that nature that was separate from those people they didn't respect, then they start to see me as an individual versus being linked to, whoever. So, but yeah, it takes time. It does take time. And What's nice about the DC area, you have Indigenous American people from so many different tribes, so many different tribal communities that flock to this area because of the jobs for the most part, right? There are quite a few that actually work for the federal government. And so I get to see them, and in some cases I even get to communicate with them, you know, just a simple conversation. Or some people I met at Sweats not too long ago that you've probably seen on TV. And it's just, I'm honored. After all these years, I'm honored that I'm able to be received in a pleasant way by so many people from so many different communities that are not necessarily from Virginia and North Carolina. I can't remember the last powwow. Well, let me think about it. Yeah, I did go to a powwow in 2016 in the state of North Carolina. And also another powwow I went to in North Carolina. I think that was the Meherrin powwow. But other than that, I haven't been to many powwows in that state for a very, very long time. And I have my reasons. Virginia, and I'll say this again, because I've said it before, my favorite Indigenous American festival / powwow is the Nottoway powwow. The Nottoway tribe of Virginia. I love attending that powwow. I love it. There's so much respect there. And there might be a few people that, you know, I don't care to be around, but that doesn't represent the entire community there. Those people aren't even part of that community. They just happen to show up. But I'm just happy that I've gotten a chance to meet so many great people from so many different communities. Has nothing to do with being on a reservation or not. Some people that, you know, were born and raised on a reservation, or at least raised on a reservation, that come over to the East Coast, they had to learn real quick. They had to learn real quick the territory they were on. And that whole, sometimes you can come across people that are very lofty, very, you know, superior thinking, that they are the authentic people of the Americas, you know what I mean? But then when they come over here, then they have to pump their brakes and realize, no, for instance, DC, right? That's Piscataway land. If you're gonna be in DC and in Maryland, parts of Maryland, you need to come correct. And you need to know whose land you are on. You going to DC and all these other areas for work. You better know whose land this is. Okay, this is Piscataway land. And so I think eventually, if they're here long enough, they'll realize, okay, I need to, you know, I need to be more open to other traditions besides my own. Yes, in our powwow, we may dance counterclockwise. Well, guess what? At this powwow over here, they dance clockwise. Or they may have a different style of dance or different regalia, you know. I need to respect that. And so I think eventually they kind of understand, and you'll start to notice there is some layer of respect from those who were raised on reservations. So, okay, I'm gonna read the comments, and this video is actually gonna end a little quicker than my usual 2-hour, you know, story time. Okay, so Kimberly, he said that is correct. Okay, Love Legacy says Meko CEO. I'm not sure what that is. I'm assuming you're saying hello, so I'm saying hello back. Love Darkness Blacking says she already took a DNA test, did she? Yes, I have. If you go to my page, and I'm sure you have gone to my homepage on YouTube, the first video you should see that will automatically start is my DNA results video. Taino says peace. Peace, Taino. Thanks for watching. Let's see. Love Darkin says, I got my pre-Columbian Nigerian artifact on my icon. Cool. Taino says, tribes don't accept DNA. For the most part, they don't. You can take that DNA test all you want and have a significant amount of Indigenous American genetics that pop up, and they still may not receive it. So it just depends on tribal politics of that particular community, how they do things, and just respect their process. It's unfortunate that you have some communities that discriminate against certain people. And I'm not going to mention the tribe or that nation, because we all know the main one in the United States. But anyway, you know, at the same time, that's why you have splinter tribes, splinter communities, where they will create their own group, and some may also be recognized by the state that they reside in. I'm thinking of, for instance, the Saponi, right? You have so many bands, so many splinter groups, because many of them, they migrated up north. Some are in Ohio, some are in New York State, some are somewhere in Canada. You know, there's some down in South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia. So they, you know, being that they're far apart from each other, you know, they created their bands wherever they were. And sometimes when a particular group does not receive your family, even though you are blood related and you have every right to be a member, right, with voting rights, you have some people that just discriminate. So you just need to take your information in your family tree and plant it somewhere else. And if your goal is to be recognized by this corrupt government, then that's your choice. If you want to go through all of that for them to say that you are Indigenous American. If you want to get approval from a corrupt government so you can get crumbs from the master's table, if that's your goal so you can feel more authentic to this land, that's your business. I personally believe you shouldn't have to do all that. Just be, okay? Just be. Let's see. Love Legacy. Genealogy is key. DNA can't do such. Genealogy has its place. It definitely has its place. But we all know that a lot of times the paper trail is very sketchy. We also know that the paper trail can be edited and things change. So maybe your ancestors were once upon a time identified as Indian on the report, on the census, and then the next census that comes out, now there's something else. It just depends on who was actually documenting what they thought your ancestors were, or who they thought your ancestors were. And most of them people were illiterate, right? And ignorant when it would come to a person's cultural identity or their ethnic identity. If they look at your hair, your skin, and your, let's say your nose, right? They'll put you over here in this category. You can have the same parents, and every other child looks different because they took on a strong genetic marker of an ancestor once upon a time. And it actually, they call it DNA memory or something like that, or throwback DNA, that's what they call it, where you look exactly like a great-great-great-grandfather, right? And everybody else looks like mom or looks like their dad, but you look so much like your great-great-great-grandfather. So anyway, again, genealogy has its place, but at the same time, you know, there's some loopholes. Okay, Kimberly says, we are told never to give anyone out our DNA, so I will never take the test. I respect that, Kimberly. I do. Taino says most of the people in the tribes are not even Indian by blood. They are colonizers. Oh my goodness. Oh, you can say that again. You can say that again. And unfortunately, you have certain communities where you would even know that they were Indigenous American unless they told you, because they watch a certain TV channel, right? A certain TV network. And they talk negative about another group of people in a certain kind of way, if you know what I mean. They may talk negative about family members that look too much like another group of people that they don't like. And it's very similar to the colonizers, right? So I understand what you're saying. They have that piece of paper. They got that golden ticket card from the master's table. And they actually are reflections of colonizers, right? By their actions and the way they think and all of that. And many of them have that capitalistic mindset as well. So, you know, there you go. Okay, Love Darkness is from ancient Mexico. Are you talking about your icon, Love Darkness? As far as, I think you said something about your icon is an artifact. I think that's what you're referring to. But anyway, guys, I have to go. I did want to mention this one book that I talked about in a YouTube video I created years ago. It was IndiVisible, African Native American Lives in the Americas. I suggest you guys read that. I mean, among other books, but I'm just highlighting this book right now. The author, or I would say co-author of this book, is Gabrielle Tyack. She is Piscataway. She lives in Maryland, and I've had several opportunities to be within her her space. And I would say that she knows her stuff. She's very passionate. She's an activist, and a laundry list of great characteristics. So I would again suggest you guys to go out and, you know, even go online to, you know, learn more about this book if you haven't already. It's called IndiVisible, African Native American Lives in the Americas. And it pretty much highlights those people who are Indigenous American by blood, and also adoptions, but more so by blood. They talked about Virginia, Indigenous American people, North Carolina, also up in New England and all of these other places up and down the East Coast, because there are so many stories that people have yet to receive, right? They always want to put you in a box, right? You either black, white, other, or Hispanic, Latin, or whatever, right? There's so many gray areas when it comes to identification. You have culture, you have ethnicity, you have nationality, and it's unfortunate and it is disgusting that as of right now, 2019, we are still having conversations about culture identity and about ethnic identity, right? So I'm about to end this video. Thanks, guys, for chiming in, leaving your comments, for liking, and for everyone else that are going to view this video later. I am going to put a link to that book in the description box. Just give me a few moments to do that, and you guys can check that out at your convenience, at your earliest convenience. And again, just because someone was not raised on a reservation, that does not make them less Indigenous American or less authentic American, okay? So let's get past that, because in my opinion, that's very divisive, and we just need to get past that, and we need to focus on uplifting each other. We are all brothers and sisters. We are all trying to get through life. We're all on this journey, and we just need to support each other. And, you know, there's power in numbers, of course. And let's just get past all of that reservation versus not being on the reservation. Tribal card versus not having a tribal card. You know, this way they do things versus this way. Every community has a different way of doing things, okay? Just get over it. Get over it and just be more receptive to learn other people's traditions and way of life, right? So anyway, guys, have a great evening. Be blessed. You know, be a blessing to others. Take care until next time. And there will be a next time. Toodles.